Have you ever heard of the ancient ruins of Samaria? Imagine a place that was once the grand capital of the Kingdom of Israel, the stage for powerful kings, bold prophets, and biblical upheavals that resonate to this day. But what if I told you that something was discovered among these ruins, and it could change everything we know about this forgotten city? What remains of Samaria's past glories? Are there secrets buried beneath the weight of history, waiting to be revealed? Over the centuries, this city has been the scene of betrayals, wars, and prophecies. The kings of Israel built it in the middle of the desert, fortified its walls, and ruled from its stone palaces. But the Bible already warned about his tragic fate. The prophets warned that idolatry and corruption would lead Samaria to destruction. And there was no other way. The Assyrians came like a whirlwind, destroyed the city, and took its people into exile. But was this the last word on Samaria? Or has something remained hidden beneath the dust of time, waiting to be found? Recently, archaeologists have begun to unravel mysteries that may connect the ruins of Samaria with biblical events in a surprising way. Excavations revealed traces of temples, enigmatic inscriptions, and even evidence that this city could have been even grander than imagined. Would this evidence be concrete proof of the authenticity of the biblical narrative? What does archaeology have to say about the lost kingdom of Israel? After all, Samaria is not just a forgotten place. His name is still mentioned in theological debates, in archaeological discoveries, and even in modern conflicts. But what really happened here? Has the fate of this city been sealed forever? Or are there prophecies that point to an unexpected future? If you've ever wondered whether the Bible really describes places that still exist, whether there are hidden connections between sacred accounts and archaeological finds, then stay with me. Let's explore every detail of the ruins of Samaria, reveal stories buried for centuries, and discover if this lost city still has something to tell us. But before we dive deeper into this surprising investigation, I need to give you a warning. What you are about to discover may challenge everything you believed about biblical history. The truth behind the ruins of Samaria may lie hidden in plain sight, just waiting for the right pieces to be connected. Are you ready for this journey? If you've made it this far, it means that, like me, you feel this need to understand the mysteries hidden in the lost places of the Bible. After all, it's not just history. It's evidence that can prove the authenticity of events that many try to discredit. Every stone, every ruin, and every manuscript found could be the key to rescue a forgotten part of the biblical past. And that's exactly why staying informed about these discoveries is so important. How many secrets are still buried beneath the earth, waiting to be revealed? How many stories have been silenced by time and are now beginning to resurface? This is where we connect faith with science, history with prophecy, the past with the present. If you believe these truths cannot be ignored, take advantage now to leave a like, because this not only helps this knowledge reach more people, but also shows YouTube that this is content that needs to be spread. It is clear. Subscribe to the channel, so as not to miss any bombastic revelations about the forgotten places of the Bible. We're just getting started, and what comes next could be even more surprising. Samaria, the lost capital of the Kingdom of Israel, bears in its ruins the marks of a glorious era and overwhelming destruction. Founded by King Omri around 1880 BC, this city was not chosen at random. Its strategic location, high on a hill, made it a central point for trade and military defense. But Samaria was not just a fortress. It became the beating heart of the northern kingdom, stage for powerful kings and some of the most impactful events described in the Bible. The city gained even more notoriety under the rule of King Ahab, son of Omri. It was during this time that Samaria flourished, full of luxurious palaces, grand temples, and bustling markets. The Bible mentions Ahab as one of the most controversial kings in the history of Israel, known for his alliance with Jezebel and the introduction of the cult of Baal in Israelite lands. This period was marked by intense spiritual conflicts, with Prophets like Elijah challenging idolatry and calling for the nation's repentance. But Samaria's greatness also brought its downfall. The scriptures repeatedly warned that their corruption and deviation from God's ways would bring severe consequences. Prophets such as Amos and Hosea announced divine judgment on the city, predicting that it would be devastated and its population taken into exile. And that's exactly what happened in 722 BC, when the Assyrian Empire, led by Shalmaneser V, and later Sargon II, surrounded Samaria and conquered it after a long siege. The destruction was brutal. The northern kingdom of Israel fell, and much of its population was deported to distant regions of the Assyrian Empire, an event known as the exile of the 10 lost tribes. The Assyrians brought other peoples to inhabit Samaria, resulting in a religious and cultural syncretism that would later generate the emergence of the Samaritans, a group frequently mentioned in the New Testament. But here's the intriguing detail. Even after centuries of destruction, the ruins of Samaria still bear traces of its past glory. Impressive structures such as carved columns and fortified walls can still be seen today. Archaeological excavations have revealed remains of palaces, pagan temples, and even fragments of inscriptions mentioning Israelite kings. But are these findings enough to prove the biblical narrative? Modern archaeology continues to unearth evidence that connects Samaria to the stories described in Scripture. Recently, fragments of pottery and inscriptions were found that refer to the period in which the city prospered. Furthermore, marks of fire and destruction in the deepest layers of the archaeological site coincide with reports of the Assyrian invasion. And that brings us to an even more intriguing question. Could it be possible that even more shocking secrets were hidden beneath the ruins of Samaria? The Bible mentions temple treasures, sacred documents, and artifacts that have never been found. Some researchers believe that there are still unexplored underground chambers where these objects could be buried. Others argue that new discoveries could reveal more about the culture, religion, and daily lives of the ancient Israelites. Now, think with me. What else could the land of Samaria be hiding? If each new dig brings surprising revelations, imagine what might still be waiting to be found, and this makes us reflect. If archaeology has proven so many details of the biblical narratives, what else could be confirmed in the future? Are we about to witness a discovery that will change everything we know about Israel's history? If you've made it this far and are as intrigued as I am, I want to hear from you. Do you believe that Samaria still holds hidden secrets? Comment the word below, "Secret of Samaria," so I know that you are part of this select group of curious people and scholars of the Bible and archaeology. Now let's go even deeper into this investigation and explore what's left of this city that marked the history of the people of Israel. The ruins of Samaria still echo the stories of the past, and when walking through this ancient territory, it is impossible not to ask yourself, what have these stones witnessed over the centuries? What we see today are fragments of a city that was once great, an imposing capital that sheltered kings, prophets, and defied destiny itself. But even after centuries of destruction, invasions, and abandonment, Samaria still resists, and not just in history, but in the soil that holds the remains of its former glory. When visiting the excavations, what impresses most are the majestic columns that are still standing, as if they were trying to silently tell the story of the past. These columns are part of what was once a grand royal palace, built by King Omri and expanded by King Ahab. This palace, according to archaeologists, was one of the most luxurious in the Kingdom of Israel, with immense halls, walls covered in ivory and imposing structures that dominated the landscape. But what would have remained of this center of power? There are still traces of the royal bedrooms, the corridors where advisors and generals planned strategies, the courtyards where messengers brought news of alliances and battles. In addition to the palace, excavations revealed ruins of pagan temples, which confirm the biblical accounts of the idolatry that took over the kingdom during the days of Ahab and Jezebel. There are records of temples dedicated to Baal and Asherah, foreign gods who were introduced and worshipped in Samaria. And here comes an interesting detail. Archaeologists found small idols, sacrificial altars, and inscriptions that indicate cults that mixed elements of Israelite faith with pagan practices. This further reinforces the biblical narrative that the kings of Israel strayed from the worship of God and ended up corrupting the faith of the people. But the most intriguing thing is that among the rubble, archaeologists also identified traces of great destruction, exactly as described in the Bible. Fire marks on the stones, layers of ash, and remains of collapsed walls coincide with the report of the Assyrian invasion in 722 BC, when the city was completely sacked. This detail raises a fascinating question. Would this evidence be concrete proof of the veracity of biblical prophecies, or just historical coincidences? Another impressive finding was the discovery of inscriptions carved in stone, some with names, of kings and references to political alliances, suggesting that Samaria was an important diplomatic center. In addition, fragments of pottery were found with inscriptions in ancient Hebrew, indicating that there was a writing system there and possibly records that told stories that never reached us. Are there still documents hidden beneath the ruins? Texts that could reveal details about the reigns and events that took place there? The city of Samaria was not only a political and religious center, but also an important commercial point. Excavations show that there were large warehouses, workshops, and structures there that indicate intense economic activity. Products from different regions passed through Samaria, and many scholars believe that trade was one of the factors that contributed to foreign influence and the consequent introduction of idolatry. But what if I told you that there are still unsolved mysteries among these ruins? That there are researchers who believe that Samaria may hide underground passages, secret tunnels, and even a possible cache of sacred objects. Some believe that important relics from the Jerusalem temple, or even historical records that could rewrite part of what we know about the Israelite monarchy, could be buried there. Just imagine the impact of a discovery of this level. What would this mean for biblical archaeology and for the faith of millions of people around the world? What do these ruins represent today? Were they just a reminder of Israel's lost greatness? A prophetic warning about the fate of those who stray from the divine paths? Or a portal to unrevealed secrets, waiting for the right moment to come to light? What do you think? If you believe that Samaria still holds mysteries to be discovered, comment here, Mysteries of Samaria, and share your theory about what might be hidden beneath these ruins. Let's continue this journey, as there is still a lot to reveal. Samaria was built to be imposing, a city that symbolized the power of the kingdom of Israel and the grandeur of its kings. But what began as a glorious fortress quickly turned into a center of corruption and idolatry, moving away from the principles established by God for His people. For centuries, prophets have warned that disobedience and the search for foreign gods would bring devastating consequences. Amos and Hosea were clear in their messages. Samaria would fall, and its people would be scattered. But was this destruction just a historical event caused by political disputes? Or would it have been, in fact, an exact fulfillment of biblical prophecies? The warnings were constant. The prophet Amos, who lived during the height of Samaria's prosperity, denounced the unrestrained luxury and oppression of the poorest. He warned that the city was straying from the ways of the Lord, and that because of this, justice would come. In the book of Amos 3:15 we find a clear warning. I will tear down the winter house along with the summer house. The houses of ivory will perish, and the great houses will come to an end, says the Lord. Interestingly, archaeological excavations in Samaria found remains of houses decorated with ivory, confirming that the city was indeed home to a rich and extravagant elite. The prophet Hosea was even more emphatic when warning about the fate of Samaria. In Hosea 13:16 it is written, Samaria will bear her guilt, because she rebelled against her God. They will fall by the sword, their children will be torn in pieces, and their pregnant women will be split. The description is shocking, but we know that the Assyrian invasion was brutal. Historical records confirm that when King Shalmaneser V besieged Samaria, the city held out for 3 years before finally falling. When the Assyrians entered, they showed no mercy. Ancient documents report that they massacred the inhabitants, deported the survivors, and brought foreign people to occupy the city, completely changing its cultural identity. But one of the most impressive details is in the archaeology. During excavations, researchers found layers of destruction in Samaria that date back exactly to the time of the Assyrian conquest. Remains of collapsed walls, signs of raging fires, and broken objects indicate that the city actually underwent a sudden and violent collapse. The prophecy was literally fulfilled. The question that arises is, would this destruction be just a political event, the result of the military expansion of the Assyrians, or a divine intervention as predicted by the prophets? For those who believe in the Bible as a historical and prophetic book, the events surrounding the fall of Samaria are clear proof that the word of God is fulfilled. But the story doesn't end there. The book of Jeremiah contains a detail that many ignore. In Jeremiah 31:5, there is an unexpected promise. You will plant vineyards on the mountains of Samaria. Farmers will plant them and eat their fruit. In other words, there would be a time when Samaria, even after its destruction, would flourish again. And what is impressive is that, after centuries of abandonment, the region where Samaria was located was once again inhabited. Today, the region is known as West Bank and became a point of intense debate and political dispute. What was once just a place of ruins now houses communities that, interestingly, they plant vineyards and harvest fruit, exactly as Jeremiah prophesied. And one more fact that cannot be ignored. In Jesus' time, Samaria still existed, but its population was already different. The Samaritans, descendants of those who were left behind, and the foreigners who were brought by the Assyrians, had their own interpretation of Judaism and were not well regarded by the Jews. But Jesus, unlike the religious leaders of the time, he crossed Samaria, spoke to the Samaritan woman at Jacob's well, and showed that salvation was not just for a specific people, but for all those who sought the truth. The story of Samaria is a reminder that civilizations may rise and fall, but prophecies endure. They are fulfilled at the right time, and their evidence can often be seen in both history and archaeology. The most fascinating thing is to realize that there are still mysteries to be revealed. Could it be possible that more traces of Samaria's destruction are buried beneath the layers of time? Could ancient inscriptions be found, bringing new revelations about this crucial period in biblical history? And now I want to hear from you. Do you believe that the destruction of Samaria was just a historical event, or a direct intervention from God? Comment here, the prophecy was fulfilled, so I know you're following this incredible journey through the mysteries of biblical archaeology. Hold on tight, because there are still more discoveries ahead. In Jesus' time, Samaria was no longer the great capital it once was, but its name still carried immense weight in Jewish culture. Even centuries after its destruction by the Assyrians, the city continued to be a controversial territory, embroiled in religious disputes, prejudices, and divisions that separated the Jews from the Samaritans. The city, although reduced, still pulsed with life and with a population that saw itself as heirs to a unique tradition, distinct from the Jews of Jerusalem. What many do not realize is that, despite this separation, Jesus chose Samaria as one of the most important stages to demonstrate his mission of redemption, breaking barriers that had been erected over centuries. The most famous episode that connects Jesus to Samaria is the encounter with the Samaritan woman at Jacob's well, described in John 4:26. This meeting was not accidental, but a deeply symbolic moment. First, because the evangelist John himself makes a point of recording that it was necessary to pass through Samaria, John 4:4, something that many Jews avoided, as they considered the Samaritans to be unclean. But Jesus not only passed by, but also stopped to talk to a woman, something unthinkable in Jewish culture at the time, especially if this woman was a Samaritan. This meeting took place in Jacob's well, a place full of symbolism. According to tradition, this well had been dug by the patriarch Jacob and was located near the ancient city of Shechem in the Samaria region. There, Jesus begins a dialogue that surprises the woman and breaks all social and religious paradigms. He asks for water, and the woman, surprised, asks, "How can you, being a Jew, ask me for a drink, a Samaritan woman?" John 4:9. This question reveals the barrier that existed between Jews and Samaritans. The Jews viewed the Samaritans as a mixed people, descendants of those who remained in the land after the destruction of the kingdom of Israel, and who intermarried with foreign people brought by the Assyrians. They worshipped God differently, had their own temple on Mount Gerizim, and rejected much of the Jewish traditions of Jerusalem. Therefore, they were considered heretics and impure. But Jesus, with his answer, reveals something much bigger. He talks about living water, offering the woman something she does not immediately understand. He not only talks to her, but reveals that he knows everything about her life, her mistakes, her pains, her secrets. What makes this moment even more powerful is that Jesus reveals himself as the Messiah for the first time in the Bible exactly to this Samaritan woman. While to the Pharisees and religious leaders of Jerusalem he spoke in parables and signs, to this woman he openly declares, I am the one who speaks to you, John 4:26. This completely changes the woman's perception and makes her rush to announce the news to her people, becoming in a way one of the first evangelists of Christianity. But Samaria's connections with Jesus don't stop there. In Luke 9:51-56, there is a curious account. Jesus was on his way to Jerusalem and sent disciples ahead to prepare for his arrival at a Samaritan village, but they were turned away. James and John, indignant, asked Jesus if he wanted fire came down from the sky to consume that city, as in the episode of the prophet Elijah. But Jesus rebuked them, because his mission was not one of destruction, but of reconciliation. Another striking moment involving Samaritans and Jesus is in the parable of the Good Samaritan, Luke 10:25-37. This story, told by Christ himself, places a Samaritan, someone considered unclean and unworthy by the Jews, as the only one who showed compassion for a man injured on the side of the road. This was a direct provocation to the religious mentality of the time, because the priests and Levites, who were supposed to represent holiness and goodness, passed by the man and did not help, while the Samaritan was the only one who had mercy. And if you still have doubts about the importance of Samaria in Jesus' ministry, watch what happens after his resurrection. Before ascending to heaven, he gives one last order to his disciples. And you will be my witnesses both in Jerusalem and in all Judea and Samaria and to the ends of the earth. Acts 1:8. Samaria is directly included in the mission of the church, and in fact, that's exactly what happened. In Acts 8, Philip, one of the first evangelists, goes to Samaria and preaches the gospel. Many people convert, and Peter and John are sent to confirm this new movement of faith, demonstrating that Christ's message was already breaking barriers and reaching those who were previously considered excluded. And here's something few realize. The Samaritans still exist. Yes, today, a small group of Samaritans live in Israel, preserving their ancient traditions, their language, and their worship on Mount Gerizim. They still follow the Samaritan Pentateuch, a text similar to that of the Jews, but with some differences. These people, who were marginalized for centuries, survive to this day, keeping alive a part of history that directly connects to what Jesus did 2,000 years ago. Now think with me. What does this mean for us today? The ancient city of Samaria may be in ruins, but its history still resonates. Jesus' words continue to challenge religions, cultures, and prejudices. What can we learn from this? Are there more secrets about this region waiting to be discovered? Can archaeology reveal more evidence of the events described in the Gospels? If you believe that the history of Samaria still has a lot to teach us, comment here, "The truth is in Samaria," and tell me, which of these biblical episodes surprised you the most? Let's explore these hidden mysteries of the Bible together. Samaria has already revealed a lot about her past. But what if I told you that are there signs that there are still secrets buried beneath its ruins? Does this city still contain traces that could change everything we know about biblical history? And, most importantly, could it be possible that hidden inscriptions, underground tunnels, and forgotten artifacts could further prove the veracity of the scripture accounts? What most intrigues researchers and archaeologists is the fact that many areas of ancient Samaria have not yet been completely excavated. Yes, despite centuries of exploration, there are parts of the city that remain buried, protecting mysteries that could surface at any time. Some of these areas are under modern structures, while others are in politically sensitive regions, making exploration a real challenge. But there is something that has caught the attention of experts: evidence of underground hiding places that may contain secrets that have stood the test of time. The hypothesis of secret tunnels in Samaria is not recent. Some ancient texts talk about hidden passages used to escape and store wealth during periods of war. In recent years, modern technologies such as ground-penetrating radar and satellite imagery have identified anomalies beneath the known ruins, suggesting that there may be underground structures still intact. What is hidden beneath the layers of time? Could there be documents, manuscripts, or even sacred relics that have never been discovered? Among the most mysterious finds ever recorded in Samaria are fragments of inscriptions mentioning kings of the northern kingdom. These inscriptions were found on pieces of pottery and on stones that were apparently part of older buildings. Interestingly, some of these inscriptions mention the names of known biblical kings, reinforcing the connection between biblical events and historical reality. But here, an intriguing question arises. If written records have already been found about Samaria, are there still more complete texts hidden in the ruins? Could there be an underground library containing records of the administration of the Kingdom of Israel, documents that could rewrite parts of our understanding of that period? Scholars believe so. Other ancient civilizations, such as the Egyptians and Mesopotamians, are known to have kept detailed archives on clay tablets, parchments, and carved stelae. And the Kingdom of Israel, being such an influential state, certainly had its records as well. The destruction of Samaria by the Assyrians may have erased many of these documents, but there is the possibility that some were hidden before the invasion, as occurred in other ancient cities. And we cannot ignore religious artifacts. We know that Samaria became a center of pagan worship at one point in its history, which means that sacred objects, idols, and even altars may be buried there. Recent discoveries have already pointed to the existence of pagan temples in the city, including small idols of foreign gods and traces of sacrificial altars. But what few talk about is that there is also the possibility that objects belonging to the original cult of God, prior to foreign influence, may have been preserved and hidden before the final destruction of the city. Another fascinating theory suggests that Samaria may have been a place where sacred texts were stored. Some traditions claim that copies of ancient biblical texts, or even prophetic writings that have been lost to time, could have been kept there. Discovering any such record, it would be revolutionary, as it would give us a new perspective on how biblical texts were preserved and transmitted over the centuries. Imagine the importance of finding a document that confirmed word for word portions of the scriptures as we know them today. And now comes a question that cannot be ignored. If there are so many possibilities, why haven't these secrets been revealed yet? The answer involves a series of factors. First, there are geopolitical limitations, as the region of Samaria is located in today's West Bank, an area often embroiled in political tensions that make extensive excavations difficult. Furthermore, many of the most promising locations for new discoveries are under modern buildings, making excavation impossible without displacing entire communities. Another factor is the difficulty of archaeology itself. Many of the ruins that have been explored were just meters from the surface, but the oldest structures, which may contain the most valuable secrets, are buried at depths not yet reached. This requires advanced technology, investment, and meticulous excavation work that can take decades. But the big question is, what if at some point a new discovery emerges? What if an archaeologist digging in Samaria comes across an inscription that directly mentions a biblical prophet, or a sacred artifact that dates back to the times of the kings of Israel, or perhaps even traces of an ancient hiding place where city leaders tried to preserve the history of their people before the Assyrian invasion? If there's anything history teaches us, it's that truth always finds a way to emerge. Every decade, new archaeological finds come to light, bringing new revelations and strengthening the authenticity of biblical accounts. What remains to be revealed in Samaria? What else could be hidden beneath its ruins, just waiting for someone to do the right digging in the right place? Now, I want to know your opinion. Do you believe that Samaria still has hidden secrets? If so, write it here in the comments, the mysteries of Samaria, and tell me, what do you think can be found there? A lost parchment? A prophetic inscription? An underground tunnel? I want to know your theory, because this story is far from over. Today, Samaria may seem like just a pile of ruins forgotten by time. But the truth is that this city still carries a gigantic importance, both for history, geopolitics, and faith. What was once the capital of the Kingdom of Israel remains a place of intense debate and great spiritual significance. But why, after so many centuries, does Samaria still have an impact? What makes this piece of land, mentioned countless times in the Bible, continue to be target of disputes, research, and speculation about the future of humanity? First, the ruins of Samaria are one of the greatest archaeological heritage sites in the biblical world, offering physical proof of the existence of the Kingdom of Israel and the events described in the Scriptures. Excavations over the years have revealed remains of the Omri's palace, monumental columns that still stand the test of time, ceramic fragments and inscriptions that mention biblical kings. This is one of the few places in the world where it is possible to walk between the same walls that surrounded one of the most important cities in the Old Testament. But these ruins don't just tell an ancient story. They remind us that the past and present are interconnected, and that many prophecies that mention Samaria have not yet been completely fulfilled. But beyond its archaeological value, Samaria remains one of the most disputed spots on the planet. The city is located in the region of West Bank, a territory that has been the scene of tensions between Israelis and Palestinians for decades. This land, which once belonged to the northern kingdom of Israel, is now part of a complex political puzzle where groups claim ownership based on history and religion. Many Jews believe that Samaria should be completely reintegrated into the state of Israel, as it is part of the inheritance promised by God to Abraham. At the same time, Palestinians see the region as part of their national identity, making Samaria one of many flashpoints in the dispute over territory. And here comes something even more intriguing: biblical prophecies that mention Samaria in the end times. The book of Jeremiah, for example, says that Samaria will be restored and that there will once again be people cultivating their land. Jeremiah 31:5 states, "You will plant vineyards on the mountains of Samaria. Farmers will plant them and eat their fruit." Interestingly, in recent decades, this prophecy seems to be fulfilling before our eyes. On the hills where the ancient city stood, today there are vineyards and plantations that thrive, bringing to light this connection between past and present. Another point that raises debate is the prophetic significance of Samaria for the future of Israel and the world. There are theologians who believe that the restoration of Israel, mentioned in several biblical passages, is not complete without the total reintegration of Samaria. According to this view, the city's history is not over yet and could play a key role in end-time events. Could Samaria be the scene of prophetic events that have not yet been fulfilled? Is the city destined to have a new role in its final days? But it is not just theologians who are interested in Samaria. Tourists and researchers from all over the world visit the region searching for answers, exploring archaeological sites, and trying to understand more about the city that was once a symbol of power and ruin. Even with the political tensions in the area, people continue to go there to see up close the imposing columns that have stood the test of time, the remains of royal palaces, and the places mentioned in Scripture. It's as if the land of Samaria itself is waiting to reveal more secrets if you just look closely. Now, I want to know your opinion. Do you believe that Samaria still has a prophetic role to play? If yes, comment here, Samaria still lives, and tell me what you think could happen in this city in the future. Are we about to see something extraordinary happen in this region? Let's continue this journey and discover together. Samaria may have been destroyed, pillaged, and forgotten by many. But its history still echoes. Its ruins still whisper secrets, and its name still carries a weight that transcends time. From the times of the Kingdom of Israel to the accounts of the New Testament, this city was the scene of kingdoms in rise and fall, of fulfilled prophecies, of spiritual confrontations, and of encounters that forever changed the course of history. But is the story of Samaria really over? Or are there still secrets buried beneath its stones waiting to be revealed? Throughout this video, we explore the foundation of this great capital, its heyday under the reign of Omri and Ahab, its links with pagan cults and its destruction at the hands of the Assyrian Empire. We saw how the prophets warned of its fall, how archaeological excavations brought evidence of the veracity of these reports, and how Samaria remained relevant even in the times of Jesus. But perhaps the most impressive thing is to realize that, even today, this city continues to generate debates, research, and theories that connect the past with the future. If there's anything we've learned along this journey, it's that biblical archaeology has impressive power. Each discovery made in the soil of Samaria not only proves the existence of this city mentioned in the Bible, but also reinforces the accuracy of the biblical accounts. How many other mysteries have yet to be unearthed? How many inscriptions, tunnels, and artifacts could be waiting to come to light and completely change our view of sacred history? What if we go further? If Samaria still holds mysteries, what other locations mentioned in the Bible may contain surprising revelations? How many places considered only ancient history can actually be rediscovered by science? If you want to continue exploring these fascinating connections between the Bible and archaeology, I have a special invitation for you. Now I want to know your opinion. Do you believe that Samaria still hides secrets that can transform our understanding of the Bible? If yes, comment here, the secrets of Samaria, and tell me what was the most surprising part of this video for you. If you have come this far, it means that you are a curious person who seeks to know the hidden truth in the places mentioned in the Bible. You feel like there's something bigger to be discovered, that the story hasn't revealed everything yet. Then, don't miss this journey. Subscribe to the channel now, because we're just beginning to unlock the deepest mysteries of biblical archaeology. Here, you will find stunning discoveries, unexpected connections between the Bible and science, and revelations that could change your view of sacred history. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any videos, because the next one might bring impactful evidence that will leave you speechless. What if one of the greatest patriarchs in the Bible was buried in a place that still holds secrets that have not been fully revealed? The Cave of Machpelah, known as the Abraham's Tomb, is one of the most enigmatic sites in biblical archaeology. But has this tomb really been found? What have researchers discovered about this sacred place? In the next video, you will find out the evidence, theories, and mystery behind the supposed tomb of Abraham. A discovery that could change everything we know about biblical history. Get ready, because this discovery could be even more surprising.